Hello, beautiful souls. Today I felt like talking about a sort of strange topic, but I think is actually quite essential. And it's about the void. And you're wondering, why is she talking about this? Well, there's two reasons. Because I had recently a reflection on this particular question of the void. Because this void is something that we find in nature, in everything, um, but it's also part of our creative process. So I wanted to talk about both of these aspects related to void, because this is something I've learned to very, very recently come to welcome a little bit more in my life. In the process of publishing my novel, Bleu, which I've talked about in the previous video. If you're wondering what is the connection between all these things, I'm getting to that. So, as all of you know, nature, life, is full of action, activity, agitation, life, life forms, movement. But also we find spaces and moments and forms of void as well. Um, you have the day, you have the night, you have life activities, you have the sleeping time. When you breathe, you have the process getting air and expulsing air. Everything is is made of both of these elements of movement and stop. And this is, I think, or I believe, something that is absolutely essential in for life to strive in a harmonious and balanced way. And this is something that if you don't respect, if you only try to have agitation, activity in your life, you're missing the same way if you just want to be in light, you're missing the shadow part of your life, which is essential to integrate harmoniously in order to have balance in your life. Well, I think that in the same way, agitation is important. It's the creative process of life. This is how the universe works. But there's also periods of rest, of nothingness, and of void. And this is something that is absolutely crucial to find equilibrium and harmony in nature, in life, and in our bodies as well. I mean, if you're just agitating yourself constantly and not getting any rest, you're not going to strive for a long time. You're going to end up being exhausted and you're not going to be living in balance. And this is something obviously that you learn very rapidly to integrate when you are creating art. The necessity for having shade to having is something that is essential when you draw. I mean, if you were just drawing with light without shadow, you wouldn't have any drawings. You wouldn't see anything. You would just have like a sort of blank page, you know? So the shadows and the shadow in our lives, but also in creative art, is something that is essential. As Carl Jung, the psychoanalyst, said, you cannot have a life without. I'm just paraphrasing. I don't remember his exact quote, but a life without shadow doesn't make sense. You need the shadow in order for the light to make sense, and inversely, you know, it's both are intricately inseparable. So, for example, I will give you a particular example in my creative work. When I do these Japanese paper collages, the shiogami paper collages, usually these papers are very intricate with a lot of intricate motifs, which are really interesting. But I mean, it can rapidly become very saturated with motifs when you apply a particular paper on another one, you collage it, and it gives you this mix of very intense motifs which are, you know, on top of each other, and it becomes disharmonious. So it is always important to sort of balance a type of paper which will be more discrete with a motif that is less intricate, with a very intricate element to complement it. In this way, it makes it interesting, and it gives you this balance of rest and of visual activity in your visual field. So this is for collages, for example. It's the same thing for my drawings. You know, as if you notice my drawings here, I always try to make sure that there are obviously these striving elements of life, which are represented by the motifs. You know, the plant and half animal hybrid motifs, which are very very present, very intricate, but also I try to keep as much as possible elements of void, which are represented by these dark blue spaces. And this is essential for the visual harmony of the drawing, but also for be able to make a contrast between these interesting motifs and these spaces of blue and calm, which enrich each other. So you get my point. I mean, and that's the same thing with photography. When I a lot of my photographies, not all of them, but a lot of them, and those are usually my favorites, you're gonna have a visual element, a building, lines, and then a lot of space, empty space around it, which gives it this impression of void, this impression of calmness, of silence, which I find is very, very important and very harmonious visually. And for the emotions the viewer also receives from these creative art productions. So this is the way I want to talk about void and its importance, its essence in the creative process. But as usual, I always reflect on things on different levels, because I find it as an iconographer, and I've had a previous video if you have a look in my video list about iconography, which is something I've been trained as an iconographer, to see the symbolism in different representations. And this is a sort of professional, I don't know what's the word in English, deformation. You know, I tend to adapt this professional view of things in my personal life as well, and in my even in my spiritual reflections and travels. The fact is that the void is not just absolutely essential in nature, in life, in visual harmony, but also in our lives. And it's easy to talk about it and say, oh yeah, we need periods of rest and periods of void to rest and to calm ourselves. Yeah, you know, we all know that. We all know that we would become totally insane if we were not, you know, resting in some moments of our day or of our lives. But what I've noticed is that it's really easy for humans, and especially certain people which are very into, you know, to-do lists and things to do, and you know, trying to perform, and you know, to get caught into the movement and the overdoing thing, the overdoing of the movement, the action, and the creation. And the reason why I'm talking about this is something that I've been a bit struggling with in my life, not only in my creative life, but in my personal and spiritual life, because I tend to, you know, want to do 1,000 things a day. I want to create a bunch of things every day. I'm so curious. I want to learn about everything. And, you know, I don't have enough hours in my day. I don't even understand how people get bored in life. I don't have enough hours in my day to do and, you know, satisfy all my curiosity and creative impulses and things like that. So the thing is, because of that and my, you know, hyper mental activity that I tend to have, unfortunately, even if I'm really desperately trying to appease it with Zen meditation and with mindfulness, you know, it's still something that I'm struggling with. I've realized with at the end of the publishing process of my French version of my novel, Bleu, which I did, you know, a couple of days ago, something happened to me, which was a sort of moment of stillness, of void, which was new for me because I spent the last 4 years just, you know, working so hard on that novel while at the same time dealing with personal, you know, things to do, you know, changing apartments and trying to emphasize my creative path and creative media and my platforms and everything. So it's been a really, really busy few years. And suddenly, after the publication of my novel, I felt like this immense silence and void. And my first reflex was not a pleasant one. It was a weird emotion, a mix of sadness and anxiousness. And I thought it was really interesting. In the beginning, I was just living these emotions and I was going through them. Then I realized, okay, so I started analyzing them, thinking, okay, why the anxiousness and why the sadness? Well, I felt, okay, the sadness is understandable. It's, you know, a normal process when you give so much of yourself and when you are so, what's the word? You are so implicated in the life of your characters in a novel that you feel you live with them. I mean, you're totally live with them. They're part of your life. And in this case, more than, you know, in other cases. And so suddenly the novel is published and you feel like you know, everything stops, you know, and you're not busy anymore and you're not totally mentally taken by, you know, the process, the creative process, and yeah, sadness arises. And I felt sad because I felt that, you know, I was sort of missing the elements of my novel. I was missing the action there. I was missing also, or I was scared of missing the actual process of making my characters move in space. And so that was something, but it's normal. You know, every finishing process implies a little bit of sadness where it's a bit of a grieving process where you're ready to, you know, to accept that, okay, this page, you're turning this page and a new chapter of your life and of your creative process will start with another project. So that's normal. But the anxiousness was interesting. And I thought, okay, why do you feel anxious about void? Why is it something that, you know, why do you feel the incentive to actually fill this void right away with something like either like food or seeing people or just, you know, do things or start new projects? Mostly that, you know, it's not so much about seeing people because I'm not a extremely sociable person, unfortunately. But, you know, I felt the need to immediately start a new project or something, as if to had to fill a void, you know. And that was interesting. And I decided to actually, for once in my life, to sit there with the emotion and accept the fact that I felt a sense of void and just stay there, um, you know, welcome it and accept it and discover it and know how it feels like. And I realized that it was not so unpleasant after all. And this is probably the reason why I'm having such a difficulty in meditating. I've been meditating for many years, but I still struggle a lot in the process. A lot of my thoughts and overthinking mind is always taking over. And I'm struggling with that very much, I have to say. Even the mindfulness process of trying to be there in everything I do in life is always, you know, sort of kidnapped by my overactive mind. And so I realized that this void is beautiful. It's calming. It's um, it also gives you the opportunity to receive things, messages, hints from life, events, you know, on improvise things. Things happen suddenly when you leave a space of void for life to actually, give you things. I find the process is like, imagine if you're trying to breathe and you just want to, you just want to inhale, but you don't want to exhale. You're thinking, inhaling is really positive, while exhaling is a very negative process, which, you agree with me, this is a totally absurd way of saying things, right? You know that you have to inhale and you know that you have to exhale to have a, healthy breathing body. But then, this is a bit the same thing. Sometimes we are in agitation and we just want, to do things and to be hyperactive. And then suddenly you realize that you just want to inhale all the time. And that's totally ridiculous. You can't do that. You will just explode. Not only that, but then, if you just fill yourself with air by inhaling constantly without exhaling, you know what's going to happen? Not only are you, at risk to explode, but nothing else can come in because your whole being is full of air. It's full of breath. And okay, it's a crappy metaphor, but you get my point. This is what happens when we sort of we get hyperactive and overachieve on things without taking time to welcome void. And I realized this is what I've been doing for some time now. And so I've decided to welcome void a bit more in my life, which will have an effect, and I think it will include more void in my creativity and creative process as well. And I think it will give me the opportunity to be more, to listen a bit more about what life has to give me, rather than just trying to control everything. And yeah, to welcome life, to welcome silence, calmness, which I'm already totally in love with, but for some reason didn't seem to be able to really welcome in a healthy way in my life. So this is the reflection I had on void. I hope it, it resonates with you. Maybe not. If it doesn't matter. But this is something I wanted to share because it's been something that's been occupying my heart and my mind lately in the last couple of days after I've just published my novel. So if that resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, no problem. All right. So I wish you a beautiful day. Take great care of yourself and take time to breathe, be in calmness and silence and void. Take care. Bye.